I'm Alex.
And I'm Jonathan. I want to wish you all a good day out there on the front lines of bodywork. We're here today to talk to you about a very specific muscle that all too often gets overlooked. Whether you're a physical therapist, whether you're a structural body worker, or whether you're a chiropractor, all too often this muscle gets ignored. In fact, most of your clients aren't even aware that they have this muscle. We're talking about the subscapularis. Not only is it ignored all too often, but we feel it's the root of so many issues that face a client in their shoulder, in their neck, and even in their rib cage. Alex is going to do some great work today for that muscle, so I hope you all stay tuned and check out what he's got for you.
And before we get started on the techniques, let's take a look at the anatomy of the subscapularis. The subscapularis arises from the subscapular fossa, which is the entirety of the anterior surface of the scapula all the way down into here. The muscle takes up about the form of my fingers here. It's a fairly meaty muscle, and it comes up to finally insert right there on the lesser tubercle of the humerus. Now, let's take a deeper look at the subscapularis and all of the clinical implications it has. So the first thing we need to look at with subscap is the fact that it is sort of hidden in the armpit. It's actually not even sort of hidden, it is very much deeply hidden in the armpit. It's a pretty significant muscle to be hidden and not worked. A lot of people don't get to it, and as such, they just don't know. You work it all around the shoulder, trying to figure out what the problem is, and oftentimes it's deep in there, and many people aren't getting to it. So the other aspect that we need to look at of the subscapularis is its main function is an internal rotator of the humerus. As such, it can also adduct. And in so doing, it tends to just lock the humerus in this sort of position, and that can even pull the scapula out of alignment as it tries to deal with that. And of course, we need to talk about the subscapularis' role in the rotator cuff. It is the anterior muscle in the rotator cuff. It is the only internal rotator of the cuff. And it's balanced out by the teres minor and the infraspinatus in the back, which are the primary external rotators of the rotator cuff. And so the rotator cuff, due to injuries, to overuse, to poor posture, it can really create a big problem for people. Sometimes the back is too held, sometimes the front is too held. We often find that more often the front, the subscapularis, is holding more than we find the back is holding. But the whole rotator cuff can also lock down and prevent a lot of motion. The last thing we need to look at here is that the fact that the subscapularis, if you look at where my hand is, my palmar side of my fingers is actually on the subscapularis itself, but my fingernails are actually touching the rib cage and the serratus anterior muscle. Those two muscles get really glued and fuzzed over together, and that is one of the big sort of separation things that we can offer for people. When that gets glued down or fuzzed over, we really see a lot of decrease in motion and a decrease in ease of motion. So let's take it to the table and open up the subscapularis and see what kind of ease of motion we can create for our client today. Let's take a look at least orient ourselves to the armpit now that we have an actual armpit in front of us instead of just the skeleton. The first muscle you're going to run into right here, and you can actually grab it, you can kind of see it's a bit of a cylinder. That's lats dorsi. If you're high enough like I am right here, this is actually the teres major along with lat. Down below here in this zone, it's just the lat, and you'll notice that it's a lot thinner down in this zone. Once teres major adds to it, it's a much thicker muscle. We need to actually go past that muscle, over it. The trick is finding just the right amount of skin so that we're not pulling skin to get there. As you travel over the over the lats dorsi and teres major, you want to just essentially keep going until you run into the rib cage. And right now my fingertips are right on the edge of the rib cage. That's serratus anterior. We're going to follow that backward now. Hopefully you can see the change in my hand direction. And now I hit a roadblock. I can't continue following the rib cage back this way anymore. That roadblock is the subscapularis. I can confirm this by having my client internally rotate. Could you just push into my arm a little bit there, and it pops right up into me. So I know I'm there, and relax. How you doing, by the way?
Great.
Okay, cool. This can definitely be a fairly intense technique, and a lot of people have never had this done, so it can bring up a lot of intense sensation for people. But as long as it's not painful, as long as they're not resisting, The rewards of freedom of movement in the shoulder are usually worth it. So I'm just going to slowly sink in. And there's a few things we can do here. We can approach this a little bit more passively by simply just doing the precision and patience approach. And for that, I like to bring the arm down here, put my other hand behind the scapula as broad as I can get it, so that I'm holding the entire scapula. That way, I'm just not poking with my forward hand only. I can actually have an interplay, a little communication even with her subscapularis with both of my hands. And if we got any tender spots or anything really interesting in there, definitely let me know, Carrie.
Absolutely.
Little twitchy bit right there. Now, subscapularis has trigger points that can refer pain into the shoulder, all the way down the arm, and even into the hand too. So if you feel sensations like that, that can be pretty normal. There's definitely a taut strip right in there. Okay. And as that's melting out, I can now get access to the deeper structures. Nice breath there. And a part of this technique is actually just simply getting the scapula and the ribcage separate from one another. Nice. And as that happens, I can actually feel the scapula resting in my lower hand more. So I'm going to finish this up with a more active technique approach by doing pin and stretch. And so what we're going to do here is I've opened this area up, and if you're okay with more work here,
Yes.
we'll go for it. So from this approach, I can passively pin and stretch. We've got the muscle shortened in this position, and I anchor it right here, and I slowly bring the arm out to an external rotation. And I've already talked to Carrie, and she doesn't have any issues with her shoulder movement. This is definitely not something you want to be doing if somebody dislocates their shoulder easily. There we go. I can see some extra fibers we weren't able to get from the shortened position opening in this position. So I'm going to bring that back and put you in charge of it, Carrie. I want you to actually do that same exact motion at the pace of your choice. Keep in mind that how fast you move is really up to you, and that's the work that's going to happen. Yeah, that fiber right in there, that's what I want to get. Good. Excellent breath. And when you're ready, go ahead and relax your hand. There we go. All right. You want to make sure when you exit that you exit slowly. Don't just pop your hand away. Your client won't appreciate that. I always give it a little bit of motion here. So we're going to do some post-isometric relaxation for the subscapularis in here and a host of other internal rotators that are across the whole shoulder. So one of the most important things to do with this one, I think first is you want to make sure that the client doesn't have any problems with being in this position. Many people who dislocate their shoulders, this is a very vulnerable position, so we don't do the stretch for those folks. But otherwise, this is a great stretch. One thing you might want to do is give a little bit of traction to the shoulder. You can kind of see how I'm pulling the shoulder away from the body. It just helps to keep things from binding as you're stretching. And right there, I can feel some resistance. So, Carrie, let's have you just push gently this direction, okay? Go ahead. And maybe just a touch more. Perfect right there. Doing okay with this? All right, take a breath in. And I'm going to time the exhalation with you relaxing. So go ahead and relax your shoulder there. And with less resistance from the muscle, the shoulder goes further. How you doing, by the way, Carrie?
Great.
Is this a comfortable stretch?
It is.
Do you notice it?
It's comfortable, but I can definitely tell that it's happening.
Okay, good. Go ahead, let's do another round. Go ahead and push forward. Yeah, perfect. And take another breath in. And go ahead as you exhale, relax. And then I'm barely pushing this any further. It's mostly just that her tissues are relaxing and we're going further. They're able to go further, so we're just simply assisting them getting there. I'm just going to hang out here for a few seconds before we complete it. And we'll bring this back slowly. Definitely making sure to not sort of snap the arm back up too fast. And typically with PIR, we're doing this about 3 to 5 times. Kerry got such good gains after the first 2 that I stopped right there. And that's PIR for the subscapularis and the internal rotators.
We hope you enjoyed this educational video and that you found these ideas and techniques helpful. We're here as advocates for bodywork and to help support you out there in the bodywork community.
There are lots of other great features on our website, including articles, a scheduled list of upcoming classes, as well as a ton more videos. Please feel free as well to drop us an email if you have any questions. We're here to help. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jonathan, and we are Integration Nation.